Yes. Okay. Fantastic. So this is applying gyrotonic principles for yoga injury prevention. I had a couple of ideas just about kind of how I wanted to conduct this and sort of what I was thinking. So I'm going to run everything by you guys. We can decide from there. So I started teaching yoga before I was teaching gyro. I taught yoga since 2015. But then just because of some kind of life circumstances, I ended up transitioning just to teach gyro pretty much exclusively. But I still had one yoga gig, which was teaching classes out in the middle of nowhere in Queens on Saturday mornings, which is actually really, really awesome. But as I was teaching it, and also just throughout teaching yoga, what I noticed a lot was, one was people getting hurt, but also just that I wasn't. And I think part of that is that I was very lucky, for sure, and that I tend to err on the side of caution when it comes to pushing myself through poses, which is a total counterpoint to my usual very intense Capricorn ambition, but that's a separate issue. But I think also just having gyrotonic as a supplement to it really helped, just because it teaches you similar movements and similar poses, right? But it goes beyond that, and it teaches you the connections that you need to maintain the poses, right? A lot of times in a yoga class, we sort of, downward facing dog, inhale your right leg up and back behind you, step it forward, come up into warrior one, open warrior two, whatever it is. But it's not really about kind of the point. It's more just about the choreography and finding the pose and trying to, look like all of the people on Instagram, right? Unfortunately. But I think, I think what I was hoping to do was kind of teach what I learned just from my own experience, both as a practitioner and as a teacher, to all of you. So I know some of the poses, a lot of poses that I got requests for were back bends. So things like camel, wheel, pigeon, a lot of stuff like that. So if I thought that could be something to focus on today. Does that sound okay to everybody? Yeah, okay, fantastic. And then also, so before we go, explicitly into all of that, I thought also we could just kind of go through a basic kind of yoga sequence, right? And then as we go to each of the poses, then we can go more in depth about how we're using fifth line, how we're using narrowing, how we're using suppling, how we're doing all of that stuff. So does that sound okay to everybody? Yes, all right, fantastic. So I'm gonna leave the sound on, just in case there's any questions. If you wanna mute yourself, of course, feel free. So let's go ahead and get started. If you have, just in case, if you have a blanket or a yoga strap around with you, definitely grab one, because that'll probably be helpful. If not, it's not a big deal. This is my favorite yoga accessory these days, is a small cat. She's very helpful, right? Especially during Shavasana when she likes to lie on top of me. Okay, fantastic. Yes, I need that spot. Okay, so you don't need a mat, but if you have one and want to use it, go for it. And go. Okay, fantastic. So we're gonna start just on the floor, sitting up nice and tall. Any comfortable seated position will do, right? So if cross legs doesn't work for you, then hero's pose, right? Or Vajrasana is also totally fine with me. This is also another really good little moment here, right? A lot of times what happens, especially with kind of lower back stuff, is people tend to hang, right, in their lower back, and then we're taught in the yoga classes, right, to prop yourself up and to get right on top of the sitting bones. Now, for a lot of us, that's actually not necessarily productive, right, because I think if you're able to slouch, but in a way that's supported, it's actually totally fine to be slightly behind of your sitting bones. You just want to make sure that the seat center is turned on, right, and that you have enough strength to support yourself rather than just collapsing into the bones. Okay, so once you're Seated, any comfortable way. Right, let's just take a moment here and close your eyes. And let's take a deep breath in through the nose. And then exhale, side out. And again, take a breath in through the nose. And then exhale, side out. One more time. In. And then exhale, side out. Very good. You can allow your breathing to return to its natural rhythm. And just take a moment to be aware of your breath. Notice if your inhales are longer than your exhales. Notice if you're breathing into your chest or into your belly. There's no judgment, there's no criticism. Just be aware. And of course, if this quiet observation of your breath is just not cutting it this afternoon, and mantra words help you on your inhales, you can think, I am breathing in. And exhales, I am breathing out. And whatever else is happening around you, for the next minute or so, just let it happen without you. Good. Let's take one more breath into the nose. This time you're going to reach your arms out to the sides of the room. Expand, expand, expand. And then as you exhale, bring your hands together in front of your heart into prayer. And then once you've got your wits about you, open your eyes. Sweet. Let's interlace the fingers and start making circles with the wrists. Just getting everything to warm up. And then, oh, hold on one second, sorry. Jeez. And then you can reverse the direction if you haven't already. Right, sweet. And now you can flip your palms so they face me, right? Press your hands out towards the ceiling. And then let's already start to establish the fifth line right through the arms. Right, so you want to imagine the skin of your palms is spreading, right? So it's not just kind of flexing through the wrist and doing this, right? You want to feel the skin expand out through every fingertip, right? Notice my shoulders are down and away from my ears. Notice my elbows are still out to the side, right? So I'm getting all of the support also already from my underarm rather than just lifting. And then from here, let's take another breath in and then reach your arms up towards the ceiling. Now notice again, the shoulders don't lift, right? They drop down, if anything, and the armpit kind of spirals and scoops you up, right? So this all should feel pretty familiar, right? So the arms are just kind of floating right in the shoulder socket and they're lifting up from here. Now, let's go even further with that. So it's tempting, right, especially here to immediately fly into an arch, right? But just for now, let's imagine that you can connect the ribs in towards each other. That doesn't mean gripping and squeezing. That just means that the solar plexus connects, and at the same time, it draws up and away from the pubic bone. Right? So notice by doing that, right, we get more support in the front of the body, and then we can expand in the back and the sides of the body. So let's try to wiggle the ribs up and out of the pelvis, lifting. shoulder blades to work a little bit. Yeah. Good. And then if you want to side bend just a hair, right, reach your elbow up and away towards the ceiling as the sitting bone continues to reach down into the floor. And then reaching up. Very, very good. And now from here, right, you can keep all of that lift. Let's bring the fingertips down onto the tops of the shoulders. Now, start to move the shoulders in circles. You're going to reach your elbows towards me, right? And then lifting up. Now notice again, this isn't just from the arm bone, right? So I know for the wheel pose request, one of the big issues, right, was that there's pressure in the shoulder, right? And a lot of times for all back bends, right, not even just for wheel, the problem is that we tend to move the humerus, right, the big arm bone, independently of the rest of the shoulder. Even in gyro, we all do that. So let's just take a second here. I'm going to move up closer. So what you want to feel with this, if the circles are feeling good, stick with them, right? But you want to make sure that as you're reaching forward, right, you feel the line from the elbow into the upper back, and then from the front also into the chest, right? So everything is moving together in one piece. So as you come up, right, it's not just the humerus that's moving, it's also the shoulder blade. And then notice also, if it's just the humerus moving, what happens is this, right? And everything gets up in your ear. So instead, right, you want to expand, feel the collarbone reaching, 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 and going farther. So at first it might feel like the circle is smaller. That's okay, that's deeper. Notice also that's naturally going to give you a little extra lift and allow you to arch more. Yes, and then you can follow the line, go for it. If just going one arm at a time and really feeling the bones is helpful to you, definitely stick with it, right? And then once you feel you've got that proprioception, that awareness in the body, then you can try both. Ooh. And, right, but notice just from working, connecting the arms to the rest of the body, right, we're already applying a ton. We've got the fifth line, right, out through the elbows, right? We've also got suppling and narrowing going on through the core, right? And let's do one more big circle like that, lifting up. And then around. Okay, fantastic. Now, let's add the arms. Let's go take it a little bigger. So you're going to reach forward with the elbows again, pressing into the sitting bones, lifting up. And now from here, right, when you get to the shoulder blade giving you that little extra lift, you can extend the arms. Now notice this shouldn't feel strenuous, right, because you have all of the support from here. We're not trying to lift and force everything up, right? It's just about establishing that structure. And then you can flip your palms and push all the way back down. Again, notice the shoulders don't come up as you reach down, right? You want to keep the collarbones wide. Exactly. Keep the collarbones wide. And then again, let's come forward. The shoulder blades expand. The elbows come up and lift. And then you reach and extend away. And then pushing down. Very, very good. Let's do two more like that. Up. Good. And reaching away. Get the shoulders nice and lubed up. Yes, one more time. Inhale. And then reaching up. Oh. And then pressing back down again. Ooh. Okay, sweet. Now from here, let's switch the cross of your legs if you haven't already. I know the side that feels kind of wonky. Right? It's okay. Since on me it's very asymmetric. Okay? So let's go into some twists, right? Just to keep warming up for the spine. Right, so again, we want to find that suppleness, we want to find that lift. So let's take a breath in. Good, and then we're going to spiral up and around to the right. And look all the way over your shoulder if it feels okay for your neck. Good, and then we're going to come back in. And to the other side. Okay, so this, should feel very, very familiar to anyone who's taken either a yoga or a gyro class. But I want to just address something here because this is a thing that I see all the time, right? In gyro too. So if you want to keep spiraling and twisting, go for it if that's feeling good to you, right? But notice to really get into that spiral and to get that deep twist, we have to lift up, right? And it's not even necessarily an arch, but it is definitely a lift, right? The biggest problem that we see is people trying to do twists like this, right? Without the lift, which is called how to grind into your lower vertebra and make that very, very uncomfortable. But also you just don't get as much of the twist, right? And it ends up going up into the shoulder, right? So again, you want to find that lift, that support from here, and then and then spiral around. And good. Very good. The next time you spiral around to the right, just the screen, then we can add the arms. You're gonna reach around, right? If you want, no pressure. And then you can add a little extra lift with the arm. Now it's all the same principle, so the shoulder blade scoops you up, the top of the shoulder drops down, and then you end up getting deeper into that spiral. And swim up and around, and then reach. Again, should feel familiar. Find the fifth line out through the fingertips, right? So you'll feel the connection from the ring finger into the upper back, and from the middle finger into the chest, dropping the shoulder down, scooping the armpit forward, and lifting up even more. Yes. And very, very good. Another easy mistake that we all make, especially in gyro, is we try to side bend to get into a spiral more. Instead, you want to lift up, right, creating space between the bones, supple the belly, and then reaching out even more. Up. Right, this is not a side bend, it's an arch. And reaching, think of going through center, the solar plexus, the breastbone, lifting up and away from the pubic bone. Oh my goodness, it actually feels really awesome. Let's do one more to each side-ish, unless this is feeling really good to you, then stick with it. And reaching. Okay, fantastic, and then coming back in. Okay, cool, let's uncross the legs. And then we're gonna go right onto the floor. How's everybody feeling? Still okay? Still good? All right, awesome. This is still just the warming up phase, yeah? So we're gonna lie onto the back, and if you wanna have your blanket or anything underneath of your head for a little extra support, or underneath of your lower back, go for it. Okay, so we're gonna do, well first, let's just hug your knees in, right? You can hold on to the fronts of your knees, and then just start to draw circles. Circle the knees open and close. Your feet can be pointed or flexed, whatever feels most comfortable. Just about getting the hips to wake up, right? You don't have to go super wide with these. The point isn't to get into a really intense happy baby pose, just think more stretching and lengthening. Yeah. Very, very good. Now, as we keep doing this, right, let's start to get the belly involved just a little bit, right? This is another one. It's easy to just move from the femur bone. Let's try to connect the legs to the rest of the body. Now that doesn't mean we want to take the whole pelvis with us and start rocking back and forth. Yeah, because that's going to suck for your lower back. There's no nice way to say that. It's just going to suck for your lower back. So we want to think of a connection from the solar plexus, right, through the pelvis and out into the inner thighs. So as you bring your knees in, right, the solar plexus draws up, the belly supples and scoops in, and then as you make that circle, right, you maintain that space. Right, so notice that even though the muscles in the belly, right, especially those deep muscles, are turned on, it's still flexible, right? You still have room to move, right? We still have, that ability to lengthen and strengthen. And I can talk while I'm doing this and it's not awful. Okay, from here, you can hug your knees in towards your chest. If you're still working on establishing that connection here, feeling that in your belly, stick with it. If you're ready to move on, I've had this taught with every single vinyasa class I've ever taken. So it took me years to finally figure out how to do it without being awful. So we're going to do little bicycles. And you're going to soften the sternum and then lengthen the back of the knee away, or the head of the waist, or the head, lengthen the back of your head away. Words are hard. And then curling up, right? So this already might be enough because we're already feeling the connection through the belly. We're feeling all of the deep core muscles turn on. And then from here, you're going to reach your left elbow across to your right knee and then extend the left leg out in front of you. Now this is one of those where it would be really easy to cheat and just move from the hip flexor, right? But we're not going to do that. Instead, we want to move from those deep muscles in the belly. Still feel the solar plexus, inner knee connection. Feel the ribs scooping you up and the shoulder blades, right? They're still giving you that little extra lift. It's also really easy to just go at this from your neck. So if you're feeling this in your neck, pause for a second, lie back down. You want to have your hands supporting you. You don't want to yank yourself up. Instead, you can imagine like there's a little gear right in the solar plexus, and you're curling around it to come up. So even if you're just here and you're practicing this shape and finding all of that connection, that's fine, right? You don't have to do anything else with the legs. I know, it's pretty awful, right? And then, you know, we go into something, boat pose or something, but we're not gonna do that now. Instead, you can relax back down, hug your knees in, right? If you wanna swivel your sacrum on the floor, go for it, make more circles, whatever feels good to you. Cool. And then let's start to rock backwards and forwards. Yeah. Right, we're not gonna do the kinesis ab exercise where we end up like this, right? We're just gonna roll back and forth. And eventually you wanna make your way over onto your hands and knees. Okay. How's everybody feeling? Still okay? You're still with me? Yes. Any questions so far? No, not yet? Okay, fantastic. So we're gonna be on the hands and knees for just a moment. Let's talk about hands and knees for a second. Right? One, if you would like a blanket or something for underneath of your knees so that they don't bug you, I would definitely recommend that. Happy knees make everything better. But before we go on to the hands, I just want to address something because it's really easy, especially even if we're just doing cat back, kinesis, right, to hang out. Oh, you can't see my hands at all, sorry. So it's easy to kind of end up like this, right, and put all of the pressure into the wrists and have like the bird claw hand moment, right? So to prevent that, again, we want to find the fifth line through the palm, right? So in the same way we were working before, like with here, right? You don't just want to snap into the back of the wrist. You want to feel the whole palm expand out through your fingers and try to distribute the weight evenly to about here. It's just above the heel of your foot. There's a nice little sweet spot where it will connect from the arm back up into the shoulder. Right? The other thing here is traditionally when we do like downward facing dog or whatever it is, we're taught to have the arms directly underneath, or the hands directly underneath of your shoulders. Now for me that doesn't work because my shoulders are not quite that narrow. So I tend to take my arms a little wider. Right, one, this helps me with my palm flexibility because I can more evenly distribute the weight into my palm. But also, it's just more structurally sound for my shoulders, right? So we're not, so if you watch when I go into downward facing dog, you don't have to watch me just now, right? I can actually put most of the weight into my legs rather than just pitching forward this way and hanging into my shoulders, right? So it really gives me that feedback where I can get the shoulder blades to open and then support me. Does that make sense? Yeah, does that make sense? Okay, sweet. First ever yoga teacher I had who was like completely gifted, and he studied in India for years on an ashram when he was a teenager. He used to always say, try to get your armpits to face each other. And I had no idea what he was talking about until I started doing kinesis. Because what happens when you try to get your armpits to face each other is, the shoulder blades open and your shoulders get out of the way of your ear. Yeah, so even if you just have your hands in front of you or against a wall, right, and you just try that. Feel the collarbones open, the shoulder blades open, yes. And then just see what that does for the pose. And also feel how much easier that is when your arms are wider as opposed to here. Like here, you don't really have that much room to go. Yes.
When we're in downward dog, do we want the elbow dimples to be facing forward or each other?
That is a great question. That depends entirely on your shoulders and your flexibility and what feels good for you. Okay. Yeah, totally. Because especially actually, so like the one part of my body that's really flexible is my elbows and my knees. Because if I try to get my elbow to face forward, I end up kind of dumping into my hyperextension, right? You see that, that's no good, right? That totally breaks the line. So for me, what feels better, right, is if my elbow is actually facing slightly more in. Right? But again, that's going to depend on your body, on your flexibility, on a whole bunch of things. But that's a really, really good question. Okay, so if you're still exploring here and you want more time, take your time here, right? When you're ready to move on, we're going to come back onto your hands and knees. You can have your knees together or apart. I think it's usually, we're taught with the knees right underneath of the hips. Totally depends on what feels better for you. Right? And then we're just going to start. Let's do some cat-cow, actually. Let's do some cat-cow without all the gyro accoutrement, right? So we're gonna take a deep breath in, and then as you exhale, arch the spine, look up and back behind you as best you can. And then as you exhale, curl, round your spine, scoop your belly, press the floor away. Okay, so it's a little less dramatic than the kinesis version, but it's still just as good, right? Because you can still find all the same connections. So as you inhale and you arch, you can feel, rather than just dropping into the lower spine, right, you can feel the solar plexus drawing away forward from the tailbone, which is reaching back behind you. Again, keeping the shoulder blades in mind, supporting yourself through your arms, finding the fifth line through the hands. And then curl. Again, press the floor away. Rather than just pitching back or really going up into the upper spine, try to maintain that space between the pubic bone and the tailbone and the sternum. Yeah, and then just feel how much more space you get. Feel how your tailbone can now reach down towards your knees. And you don't have to, again, grip and squeeze with the external ab muscles, right? We can maintain that suppleness. Let's inhale again. Stand out. Allow your sitting bones to spread. Yes. And then curl. Press the floor away. Maintain that space in the front of the body. Very, very good. Let's do one more arch, one more curl. And then back. Very, very good. And come back to a neutral spine. If you need to come off of your wrist for a second, right, and give them a break, make some circles, right, show them a little love. Yeah, totally cool. That's making sense so far, right? Everything's clear? Yes. Yes, you have a question.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
When you said the armpits facing towards each other, does that make the shoulders rotate inwards a little bit?
It makes them rotate outwards a little bit, right? Because you can definitely get that way, right, with the internal rotation, right? But then it ends up more being this is expanding this way. Yeah.
If my armpit is aiming towards the other armpit, it's trying to aim inwards. That makes me rotate inwards. Are you rotating your armpit outwards?
No, the armpit is rotating in because it's trying to face each other. Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. So what happens with the arm is that it ends up kind of rotating this way, right? It's not just going this way for the sake of it, but it's the armpit goes in and then this goes out.
So the armpits are drawing inwards. They're not aiming towards each other.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it. Yeah. Does that make more sense now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Very good question. All right, let's do some downward facing dog. You want to keep your blanket nearby for support for your knees when we move, go for it. So, yes, it's good. All right, cool. So again, set up well, right? Find the fifth line through your hands. And then you're gonna tuck your toes under, right? Breath in. And then as you exhale, lift your hips up and back, downward facing dog. Right. Now, it doesn't matter if your heels don't touch the floor. It doesn't matter how far apart, right, your hands are from your toes. What is important is that your shoulders are happy, right? So notice, I'm going to turn my head this way. So notice my shoulders are not anywhere near my ears. Notice my armpits are still facing each other. The shoulder dimples are dropping down. And because of that also, it actually allows a lot more weight to be in my legs, right? So I really feel my hamstrings with this. I feel the fifth line through there. And my spine is actually pretty straight. It's never going to be completely straight just because of my flexibility, right? But you can see from here, everything's actually connected. And this isn't strength here, right? This really isn't. This is all just connections and structural integrity, right? So if you want to stay here and then try maybe arching slightly forward, or maybe you take your stance a little wider or a little shorter, right? Whatever feels good to you. Maybe you take your legs a little wider apart. Just explore, and then find what works for you. Maintaining that suppleness in the belly. That's nice, everybody. Yes. Oh, see, this looks so good. Of course, spread the fingers wide. Try to keep that fifth line through the hands. Yes. Very, very nice. And then you can come down whenever you're ready, but if you're still exploring, keep exploring. Yeah, good. And of course, if you want to break in child's pose after that, you can. Downward facing dog is actually a pretty physically demanding pose. Right? It is. Okay. Awesome. But does that make sense? Is that clear to everybody? Feeling good? Yeah, good. Do downward facing dog and it doesn't suck. That's always awesome. Okay. So now let's go into a little sequence with it, right? So we've established, right, the shoulders supporting you and giving you that lift. All we're gonna do is we're gonna go from downward facing dog into plank, but we're gonna do it, right, without dropping into the shoulder and without aggravating anything, right? So if you watch me first, I come up and I'm here, this is all comfortable, right? And then I might need to walk my toes a little bit further back, that's okay. I take a breath in, and then I come forward, my belly is supple, I narrow, my inner thighs are working, and then I'm here. So I feel this in my inner thighs and my hamstrings. And then I go back. So you can think of it just almost like the weight is going from your legs, right, exploring back, and then forward. Shoulder dimples are down away from the ears. There's no tension in my neck. And again, this isn't strength. This is just structure. Yeah. So maintaining that line from the solar plexus down into the legs. And then from here, eventually, right, you're going to come forward and then you can get to the floor the easiest way possible. I would recommend just bringing your knees, your chest and chin onto the floor for 8 limb staff pose. And then we're going to come up into cobra or into an up dog if you want, right? But when we come up, let me see, yes or no. Okay, so we don't just want to push up and do this, right? Because that's going to suck for your lower back. That also is not great for the shoulders. What we want to think of instead is rather than just pushing up, we want to think of getting longer, right? So if you've ever done Sphinx pose in Kinesis, or all the Sphinx series in Kinesis, right? And then you find the legs reaching back, the ribs coming forward, and then you pull yourself up. It's all the same stuff, but this is a lot kind of easier, I think, because we're not raising the arms up into the ceiling. So you're going to have your hands wherever they feel comfortable, but then you want to make sure the collarbones are wide and the shoulder blades are scooping you up. Also, try not to grip with the glutes and the rotators so that everything can be pretty soft. And reach the sternum, that's the word I'm looking for. Reach your sternum forward, right? And then forward, and then forward. Notice if you start to arch in the tail. If so, keep the tailbone reaching behind you. And pull forward, and forward. And then maybe this is enough, right? That's okay. This is already a really nice spine extension. If you want to come further up, open the collarbones more. This is going to come from the shoulder blades. Scoop and then pull your chest forward. Right? Keep your tail reaching out behind you. If it helps to bring the legs a little apart, go for it. Right? So it's going to be more comfortable for the tail. Supple the belly, and then look all the way up. Very, very good. Nice, everybody. Yes. And then let's come back down. Woo. Okay. If you need a break from that, because that was a lot, go for it. You can press back into child's pose, or you can just bring your hands underneath of your forehead. And then we're going to try that again. Yeah. Good, good, good. So if there's any specific questions about that, go for it. If you'd rather just keep exploring on your own, that's fine. That's nice, though. Yes. Good. So think breastbone forward. And forward, like you're going around a big beach ball. Yes, send the energy up from your tail. Good. And then make sure the shoulders are down and away from the ears. Yes. Good, 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 good. And then back down. Right, so it's not about how you get your arms straight. right? Because the arms are going to be informed by the spine. So if you get the ribs lifting up and out of your pelvis, if you get that arch, then the arms are naturally going to straighten, right? If you try to just push yourself up and then force the spine through, it's not going to feel good, okay? But this is nice though, really, really nice. Okay, you can keep going with this as long as you want. Yes. When you're good on this, right, we will meet back in a downward facing dog. Okay. Sweet. And now, you all knew it was coming. We're going to inhale the right leg up and back behind you. Right? But again, we don't want to grip from the glutes and just force the leg up. Think instead of scooping and finding that long, strong line from your right big toe down into your right thumb. Good. And then we're going to step the leg forward. Again, scooping the belly. Imagine moving from the pelvis rather than just shoving the knee forward. And step the foot down. Now, you're going to turn your left foot down. We're going to come into a triangle pose. So you can push into the front foot. Ooh, and then lift up nice and slow. Take your time. Take your time. Right? Now, with the standing poses, right, the biggest issue that I found is either the knee is overextended and is not happy, or there's just not, or the muscles are working too hard around the joint to try to stabilize you. So what we want to find here is not so much that the knee is going to hang back like this, right? You can see my knee's overextended. That's not great. Is we want to find instead the femur bone, the tibia, and the fibula are reaching away from each other. Right? So the back of the knee is open, but it's not gripped and overextended. So the kneecap can just kind of float on top. Right? It might feel like a smaller pose. I promise it's not. Okay? You can also think of if you're gripping right with the quadricep and kind of pulling up on the kneecap. Unfortunately, that's a cue I've heard a lot. Right? It's just going to overextend. Instead, spread the toes, spread the metatarsal, soften the quadricep, find the fifth line through the foot. That's good. Good. Again, lifting from the pelvic floor, narrow. Right? Pelvis is reaching up. And then you can extend your arms. Ooh, feeling them nice and supported by the underarm. Now, from here, we're going to come forward. What I don't want to see, right, is just hanging back to go forward. Keep your pelvis where it is. That doesn't mean stiff, it just means stable. So it's still lifted as you reach down, and then you can touch your shin, your ankle, the floor, whatever you got. It's not really a great view. You can't really see me. Sorry about that. Yeah. Good, good, good. And then as you stay here, right, you might notice that, oh, hold on, my knee is overextended. Let me reestablish that fifth line. Aha, there we go. Or you might think, I feel like there's a lot of weight in my front leg. Let me bring some into the back knee. Right, let me push some more off of the front foot. Yes. You might notice also that this is kind of compressing in the side of the waist. If so, don't. Keep the ribs extended. Keep everything simple. Good. And then let's come back up. Very, very good. And then we're going to step back together. Okay, good. Does that make sense? Yes, okay. Anybody have questions about that? No, that's good. Yes. Exactly. That's what I like to see. So, from here, we're just going to go right back down, reaching the arms up. And then you're going to step forward. If you want to take a little vinyasa here, right, to step into plank and then up dog or cobra, go for it. If you'd rather just step back into our downward facing dog. Oh, that we've worked so hard on cultivating, that's fine. All right, cool. Once you're good on this, we can inhale the left leg up and back. Good. And again, try not to tilt the hips, try not to go off to one side. Keep that right heel reaching towards the floor. extend and scoop with the left big toe so it feels like it's reaching away from the solar plexus. And then you're going to exhale, step forward, again, curling from the tail to help you. Placing the left foot down, and then pressing up. Ooh. Good, 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 good. So your left and right sides are going to be completely different, right? So even though we have that experience from the other side, we don't want to take too much for granted here. So, right, you'll notice, so my femur bones are internally rotated. I was just born like that. So if you notice here, my left knee tends to splay in a lot, right? So I want to make sure that my knee is not necessarily tracking over the toes in any way. It's just in a place that feels okay from in between of my pelvis and my feet. That's what I'm trying to say, right? So I'm not trying to force it to turn out, force it to go anywhere. Oh, I just want to, again, feel like it's in a safe place where my tibia, my fibula, and my femur bone can extend away from each other safely so the back of my knee can open. And then my kneecap can just float on top. Yes. So on this side, you might need to bring your legs in closer together. They might need to be farther apart. Either way, spread the metatarsals of both feet, lift from the arches, right? And then you're going to inhale, reach your arms up, and then exhale, come forward. Again, without tipping backwards, right? Keep everything here stable, and then reach long. Cool. If you want to go down further, you totally can. I can go down much further on this side, actually. Yes. Good. But again, take your time here. Make sure that we're maintaining that structure. Right? So we're not hanging back in the knee. We're not pulling up on the kneecap with the quadricep. We still have the fifth line through the feet. The pelvic floor is engaged. Good. And then you can go ahead and stand back up. Ooh. Very, very good. And then let's step forward again. Cool. Repeat. Inhale, reach your arms up. If you want to take this through a little vinyasa here, you totally can. Otherwise, we'll meet back in downward facing dog. Just one more time. Good. And then you can bring your knees back down, rest in child's pose. Very, very good. And while you're in this child's pose, just take a moment again to check in with your breath. Notice if you're breathing differently now from before we started. Again, there's no judgment, there's no criticism, just be aware. And then once you feel sufficiently recovered and you've got your wits about you, you can come back and sit up tall again. Okay, cool. How's everybody feeling? Still with me? Still with me, awesome. Any questions? No? Okay. Is this all making sense so far? Everything's still good? Okay, fantastic. So, from here, I got a reaction. Oh, that's cool.
I have a question actually.
Yes.
Right. So for people who do have hyperextension, should they be looking to keep it soft, or should they be allowed to go into the hyperextension as long as they're still keeping that sensation of the back of knee opening and the kneecap floating?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think as long as you can maintain the stability, you're actually allowed to go into the hyperflexibility if it feels safe and structurally sound for you. I think that's okay. That's a really good question. For me, I can't go into my hyperextension without it just doing this, right? Especially in my knees, and it's just not productive. So, but I think for someone who can't, if instead of doing this, it was like that, then that would be totally fine. Yeah, does that make sense? Okay.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah, a lot of yoga teachers, you get very like about hyperflexibility, and the cue is always to put a micro bend in the joint. But to me, that makes absolutely no sense, because if you're used to being here and then you're suddenly supposed to go there, one, that just breaks the line again, it's just in the opposite direction, but also that's not going to be stable. And if this isn't stable, you're gonna go right up into the shoulder and into your neck, and the whole pose is DOA. Right? At least that's been my experience teaching and as a practitioner. Okay, cool. So I got a request for camel pose. So let's talk about camel, right? It's a fun one. And this is actually a really good example for applying gyro principles to yoga, because this is a pose that I did wrong for years until I learned how to supple. So, you're gonna be up, right, on your shins. They can be together or they can be apart. A little further away. That's better. Right, good. And I'll show you just where we're going, right? You can either, just hang out here. This is already the pose. You don't need to do anything else. If you'd rather extend your arms and go back this way. Right? If you'd rather, bring your hands, there's my foot to there, you totally can. Oh, if you'd rather even go all the way down onto your elbows for a Kapotasana or something, you can. I'm not gonna do that because I'm not warmed up for it. Not today anyway. So, the cue that I hear all the time for this, right, is to use your abs so that you don't fly into your lower back, right? Because the tendency, of course, is for people to just do this, right, and to just hang, which again, does not feel good for your lower back. That being said, when people try to use their abs, what ends up happening is that they contract, right, is that the front of the body gets shorter. But it doesn't actually allow you to arch any deeper, right? So this is me, I've got my six-pack turned on, right, and I try to arch. I just end up leaning back, right, because this is gripped and then I'm kind of fighting in two directions at once, right? So this is when the suppleness comes in. This is when that engaging the abs but keeping them long comes in, right? It's because when we can do that, then we end up with this really beautiful extension, right, without even really going super hard into the lower back. The other most important thing with this pose, several most important things, is the shoulder, right? Because again, the tendency, and this is also true of arch strengthening in kinesis, right, is to just kind of shove the fingers here because they're supposed to be on the sacrum, that's the choreography, and then trying to go this way. But if you notice, right, I'm gonna come closer, what happens with that is that my shoulders get in my way, right, because I can't engage the shoulder blades properly to get that full extension, right? Does that make sense? So what ends up happening is just we get stuck, right? So let's address that for just a second. Everybody bring one arm out to the side of you. Doesn't matter which arm. And then you're gonna bring one hand onto your collarbone, onto the clavicle, yes. And just start to rotate the arm, but try to rotate it the same way we were doing at the start, where we get the whole upper back involved, as well as from the front. And you actually feel, the clavicle move. Yes. So that's what we want, right? Because it's the difference, again, between just doing this. Yes.
You can't see your hand.
You don't need to see my hand.
Well, the rotation.
Yeah, so you just need to see the arm. But I'll move so you can see my hand, right? So it's so if we're just rotating this way. But it's the difference, right, between just doing this, clavicle doesn't move, and doing that, where it does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, does that make sense? Okay, sweet. So we want to apply the same thing here, because ultimately where we want to end up is this. We want to have the shoulder blade in a place where it can support the arch, right? So to do that, you've got to open the front of the chest. So if you reach your arm out, and then you feel, it's an internal rotation, which is kind of counterintuitive, but you're going to turn in this way, right? But you keep the collarbone reaching, you keep it rotating, and then it just kind of floats into place. The collarbone will naturally, the shoulder blade, wrong bone, will naturally scoop you up. Right? And again, we can find that here too. So for some of us, that might mean, just to get the shoulder blade in the right place, that actually having your hands on your sacrum is not comfortable, right? It might be better to just have them on your hips. It might be better to just skip it all together and just have your arms by your sides, right? It's totally okay as long as we get the shoulder blades where we want them. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay, so let's try it. Okay, so we're gonna be up on the shins, right? You feel the inner thighs working, belly is supple. And let's reach the arms out to the sides of the room. Okay, so we're going to rotate them in, the collarbones spread, elbows bend, and already you'll feel the shoulder blades naturally want to scoop you up. And then the arms can just kind of float into place. Now you don't want to grip with the glutes and the rotators to stabilize. If you do, you want to feel that lift. So then you can arch. You can stay here. If you want to reach your arms behind you, you can. If you'd rather, there's my foot. Come all the way down there, you can. And to come back up again. Ooh, take it slow, right? And try to come up forward, right? Most time that's causes me the most stress, I think, is when people try to come out of the pose like this, right? That doesn't feel that great. So from here, ooh, just lifting up, which is again, should feel familiar from psoas stretch, right? Or anytime we've been in a long bow curl. It's that scooping and that lifting and that lengthening, whew, to come back up. And then once you're good on that, you can bring your hands underneath of your thighs and just stretch out the lower back a little bit. Because we've done a lot of arching today. Okay. Cool. Okay. But does that make sense? Yes. Okay. Fantastic. Any questions about that? No. Okay. Sweet. So from here, let's go into let's go into wheel very briefly. So no pressure to actually get up into the pose because it is a monster, right? If you want to, you can. If you're like, no, I'll just watch, that's fine too, right? But it's all the same stuff that we've been talking about, right? Usually the problem that people have with wheel is either they don't have the shoulder flexibility because this is happening, or because you're not using your the fifth line through the legs enough, or the supplements, right? So again, we want to find here, because ultimately with wheel, I can't really see where we're going, right, is we want this shape, right? We want to be able to push into the floor, we want to be able to open the chest, we want to be able to do that, right? So that's where we're going. But of course, we don't want to sink into the shoulder this way. We want to drop the shoulder away from the ear. Again, get the armpits to scoop up, the shoulder blades to open, right? So if you've ever done pelican on the jumping stretching board, right? And then you feel the shoulder blades kind of open this way and the spine melts up between them. So that's basically what we want for wheel too. Yeah, exactly. So let's try it. Let's try it. You're going to be on your back. You want to make sure that you're stable on the floor. And then you're going to bring your arms back behind you, right? Now notice if your elbows are splaying out to the side. If they are, adjust, right? They don't have to be necessarily right back behind you, but you want to, if they're way out to the sides, you're going to have a lot harder time getting up. Right? So, again, we're going to take a breath in here, right? Lifting and narrowing. And as you exhale, ooh, press yourself up this way. Good, good, good. And again, the shoulder blades lift you, but we want to make sure that we distribute the weight more towards the feet. So feel the hamstrings turn on. Ooh, feel the inner thighs start to work. Send your knees long over your toes. Supple, supple belly. And then you can come back down whenever you're ready. Nice and slow. Woo, which feels awesome. Cool. You want to try a few more on your own, trying to get that extension and push up and out of the shoulder, you can. If you're good on this, then be done. That's totally fine. If you have any questions, please ask me. Yes. Good.
How wide the hands placement should be?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, so I'm always wondering how wide my hands should be when I am doing progression.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it depends on your shoulders, right? And what feels comfortable for you. The most important thing is that your elbows aren't out to the sides here. So usually if your hands are kind of too close to your head, this ends up happening, right? And then you're gonna get stuck. So if they're about in line with your shoulders, maybe a little wider.
So which one is safer, like narrower or wider?
It depends on your shoulders and what feels good for you. I'm sorry, there's no definitive answer. For me, I tend to err on a little wider just because it's easier for me to get up that way. For you,
Yeah.
it might feel better.
Well,
to do so.
I also, when I'm wider, it's easier to get up, but then when I want to push, I can't, so I have to narrow it down.
Okay. Can I see you do the pose?
Yeah, maybe I can do it this way.
Yeah, that'd be great. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Good, 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 good. Yeah, I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Okay.
Yeah, because if I'm wider, I can't go anymore.
Mhm. Yeah, it's okay. You can come down. Okay. Yeah.
I can go, but I don't know if what was safe for my shoulders.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, in both of those positions, your shoulders looked okay to me. Because I didn't see you sinking into the joint. I didn't see your shoulders kind of coming up this way. It looked okay, right? As long as these muscles are activated, you're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Does
you.
that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
you.
Sweet. Yeah. All right. So, what was that? All right. Yes.
I had both a question and also a thought. So for Akiko, I also have that problem a lot because my shoulders are not flexible. So I have strength here, but yeah, so basically the same thing. And I found that for me, if I don't think of pushing with the hands, so I have them narrower usually, but my shoulders feel like they're wide. Then as I go up, I feel my shoulders start to narrow, but the hands stay narrow. So the shoulder position is changing, even though the hand position is not changing. So that's the cheat that I found for myself. That makes sense. Then my question for Lily, in the wheel, could you talk a little bit about like what the hips and the butt?
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. So for wheel, you want to wrap your sacrum, basically, is what you want to do. You want to feel the hip bones expanding out this way, giving the sacrum a little squeeze. That'll help lift you up. It'll also help you engage your inner thighs. It'll help you get higher up into the pose, right? But when you wrap, right, you don't want to squeeze with the glutes and the rotators, because if you watch me here, right, this is me if I'm just wrapping, right? I'm gonna lift. Oh, then my pelvis gets way lighter, and I will weight in my legs, and I can hang out. This feels great. If I grip and squeeze, you see that forces all of the weight back into my hands, and I end up kind of shaking it. It doesn't feel that great. So yeah, very good question. Wrap your sacrum, open the front of the hip, open the front of the pelvis, give your sacrum a little squeeze. Yeah.
Okay.
Does that
Danke.
make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Yes.
I noticed that you keep your gaze outwards in your wheel, but I find that when I do that, I tend to get like cramping in the tops of my like my traps.
Yeah, totally. It depends, again, it depends the answer to everything. Just what allows you the most space in your neck. For me, I have to keep my gaze forward. If I try to look kind of under, I tend to compress in the upper spine or in the cervical spine, which does not feel good at all. So yeah, it's all about what feels good for you. That's what's most important. Yeah. I know traditionally in yoga, they talk about, drishti, I think is the Sanskrit word, where it's like the gaze is very important. But like, if that's gonna mean your neck is in some weird place, then like that's not worth it. At least that's my opinion on the subject. But yeah, very good question. Okay, sweet. So it is 3 o'clock. I know this is only supposed to be an hour, but I still wanted to do pigeon. Are you guys okay to hang around, or? Okay, if you have to run, then I will see you another time, I hope. So for pigeon, was it mostly the issue just with the hips and the knee? Was it about the back bend, the extension? Or everything?
Well, for me, it's the placement of the leg, the placement of the leg, and what are the different options?
Yeah, that's a great question. That is a fantastic question. So, I'm gonna keep my blanket nearby. So I think traditionally we're supposed to have the front leg parallel to the edge of your mat or whatever it is. Now, for most of us, right, that does not feel that great, especially because it keeps you very elevated. But also, if you look what's happening with my spine, right, then that forces me into a curl. If ultimately where I'm going is king pigeon, then I need to be lower to the ground so that I can arch, right? So I think that whatever feels better for your knee is where the foot is where your leg should be, right? So if it feels better to be this way, that's fine. If you'd rather keep it parallel and then just prop yourself up, maybe with a blanket or with a bolster or something there, that's totally fine too. Right? It just depends what you're doing. What I would say to watch out for is just you don't want to sickle your ankle, right? Which my foot loves to do, right? So just keep it pointed or flexed, and then making sure that you're that you're still narrow, so that the pelvis can float on top of the femur bones rather than just sinking down to one side. Yeah. Right. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, good.
My foot always wants to sickle too.
Yeah.
I can't make it not sickle.
Yeah. It's just point your toes. Like, and ask it nicely not to sickle, right? Yeah, I hear you. Good. Mhm. Okay. So you can keep exploring with pigeon on both sides. If any questions occur to you, definitely ask them. Yes.
I find in pigeon, oddly enough, more on my more open side with my right leg forward, I feel a pinching in the top of the back of the left hip.
Yeah, totally. So what you want to be careful of with that, right, is that when you come up into that arch, right, so I'm going to show you on the less flexible side, but that's okay, right, is that it's the same thing as with this upward dog and the cobras, right? So lift the ribs forward and then walk the hands back, because if you immediately just go up, right, that's going to pinch your lower back. It's not going to feel. Yeah. So that might mean that you don't come up as high. That's okay. Right? What can also help is if you get more support underneath of the hips and that you get a little more height, that'll help. Right? I like to think of pigeon kind of in the same way I think about psoas stretch and kinesis. Right? So we've got the legs stretching and separating. Sorry. Super awkward transition, right? This way, and the pelvis kind of floats up between them. Right? So I get this extension this way as well as this way. Ooh. And then the pelvis is just sitting in his head, right? Because the second we start to drop, right, and hang out, that's when we get pinching, that's when we get compression. That's when it stops feeling super nice. Yeah.
I have to go. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. It was nice to finally meet you and then put a face to a name.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye. And then with pigeon as well, you can practice the back bend, right? Let's see. So if you have a strap, go for it. Right, but again, make sure that the arm is in the right place to reach up and then grab the big toe. Still got it. And coming back up. Right? You can also practice the forward fold and just hanging over. But again, making sure that the front of the hip doesn't get compressed, right? So you want to keep that scoop in the belly, keep that suppleness, keep the seat center working. Yeah. So I think, yeah, that's good. And see what's really good with that, with what Jackie just did, is because the inner thighs were working and you were totally supported. Yeah. Good. Good. So Naila, you want to supple more. Belly in. Yep. Scoop. Lift the ribs. Hey, there you go. Aha. Cool. Very good. That's what I like to see. All right. Pigeon pose where everyone's connected. That's super nice. Okay. Fantastic. So once you've done both sides and you feel good about that, are there any, you can just sit up again. Are there any questions about that? Anything still not clear? Oh, that's good. Yes. Uh-huh. And then your front ankle isn't sickling. That's excellent. Yes. Any questions about that? Anything not clear, not making sense? No, we're good. All right. Fantastic. Yeah, you can take any counter pose here that you want, and then we're just gonna lie down. So again, if you wanna have your blanket underneath of your head, you absolutely can. And then let's hug the knees in towards your chest and swivel your sacrum on the floor. And then hug your knees in, give yourself a big squeeze. And then you can go ahead and drop your knees over to the right. Finding that nice little twist here. You can reach your arms out to the sides of the room. That's helpful to you. And then at some point, hold the knees back in. And let's go to the other side. Drop your knees over. Again, you want to keep your sitting bones reaching down as opposed to just digging a hole. So you get a deeper twist. And then you can hug your knees in. And then if there's any other pose that you would like to do before we lie down, because we have to do Shavasana, that's just what I'm saying, then go for it. Otherwise, you can lie back down and get into the most comfortable version of the pose for you. If you have any other props you want to add for your Shavasana to make it extra comfy, go for it. And then once you're lying down comfortably, you can close your eyes. And let's take a deep breath in through the nose. And then exhale. Sigh it out. And again, another deep breath in through the nose. And exhale. And one more time, inhale. And let go. Very good. And keeping your mind on your breath, I'm going to guide a very brief, very simple pranayama breathwork practice. If you're relaxed and you don't need these next few cues, feel free to tune me out. If you're following along with me, we will count the breath backwards from the number 11 to 1. If at any point you lose count, just start over at the number 11. So we'll begin inhaling for 11, breathing deeply through your nose, fill your whole torso with breath. And then exhale, let it all go for 11. Inhale for 10, breathing deeply through your nose, feel your back expand against the floor. And exhale, let it all go for 10. Continue at your pace to 1. And whatever else is happening around you, just let it happen without you. Very nice work, everybody. If you're still counting, just notice what number you're on and let it go. Very slowly, we'll start to bring the awareness back into the physical body. Wiggle your fingers and your toes. Make circles with your wrists and your ankles. Rock your head gently from side to side. Again, taking as much time as you need. Hug your knees in towards your chest. Roll over to the right side. And come to sit up the easiest way possible. Let's take one more breath in together through the nose. And then exhale. Bring your hands together in front of your heart into prayer. So thank you all so much for practicing with me this afternoon, for all of your hard work. Namaste. Cool. So if you have any questions or comments, concerns, I am here. Otherwise, I will see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. How are you feeling?
Good, good. I'm like not used to not moving so much, so I keep finding I get like tensiony buildup.
Mm-hmm.
That needs like twisting and like wringing to release. So
Mhm.
I'm kind of fighting a losing battle on that one.
I'm sorry. That sucks.
It's okay.
Yeah. All right. Any questions for me? Everybody's okay? All right. Sweet. How are you feeling, Mira? Are you okay? Awesome. I love it.
Yeah, I was few times on yoga and I never knew what's going on.
That's okay.
Yeah,
That's all right.
it will happen with time.
Exactly. Exactly.
Thank
All right. Cool.
We'll upload this video and give you guys a link so you can keep referencing it if you want to.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
Sweet. Then I will see you all another time. Cool. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you. Do you want to say hi to Mina?
I know, she's been weaving.
Huh?
We should stop the recording first though.
Okay.
Hi, Fafi.